Hi everybody, my name is Alex Cohen. I'm a philosophy major and my IS is called Derivative Intentionality and Gricean Meaning. So when I was a sophomore, I took French and Greek language. I had this fascination with languages. I was fluent in Spanish and fluent in Spanish. I took it my freshman year. I wanted to change though, so I decided to take French and I needed to fill an elective and I thought Greek would be interesting to say the least. And I am really glad I made those decisions because those languages are incredibly interesting, and they really helped me, I think, develop my philosophical skills and ultimately come up with this question that I wanted to answer, which is what is semantic meaning? Studying those languages, I got a really good idea for how many ways meaning can be expressed, and the certain kinds of meaning that are maybe accessible in one language but not in another. There are concepts in Greek that we just don't have in English, and so every time we try to translate those concepts, it's never a perfect translation because you're never really getting at the actual meaning of the concept. And my junior year of second semester, I took a class called Understanding Language, where we looked long and hard at semantic meaning and what it was. And one of the philosophers we studied, his name was H.P. Grice, and he had a really interesting theory of meaning, which implied that language has derivative intentionality. So intentionality can basically be summarized as the conscious relationships that we have to objects in the world. Okay, so if you think of a mental state, we have mental states, and literally that meaning the state of mind that somebody is in. So if I'm looking at a tree, my mental state is about the tree. Okay, and then intentionality is the relationship between my consciousness and the tree. It's that my consciousness is directed at the tree, I'm perceiving the tree. And so my mental content then is how I'm perceiving the tree. And that's non-derivative intentionality. Okay. Derivative intentionality then is intentionality that's derivative of mental content, essentially. And so if you think about a book is a good example, right? A book may have intentionality, but it's only intentional insofar as its intentionality is derivative of the mental content of the author or the reader, depending on whose perspective you're looking at. And that was the question. That was the answer to my question. I wanted to argue that meaning consists of the derivative intentionality of intentionality that's derivative of one's mental content. And so my IS overall became an argument for two theses. The first was that language has derivative intentionality, and the second was that Grice's theory of meaning was a good way, or Grice's approach to language rather, was a good way to explain why language has derivative intentionality. And I think it's important in philosophy really because as I dove into the research, I quickly found out that not too many people have written about the subject. Some folks have talked about it tangentially. They talk when they're writing about intentionality, they bring up language, and they mention that language is or is not a derived form of intentionality, as Searle, who's a philosopher that I wrote about a lot, has said in the past. And being able to address that gap in literature, being able to see something, realizing that not many people have written about it, nobody really directly, and then filling that gap, I think was really, really important. Just to have a comprehensive account of language and within the philosophy of language. And so the way I approached it really was I divided my theses up into three chapters. So the first was intentionality and derivative intentionality. I explained the distinction. I argued that there is a distinction because some folks said that there isn't, and then obviously I contend that there is. My second chapter was then my argument that language has derivative intentionality, and then my third chapter was Grice's theory explained, his approach to language explained, and why his approach is a good explanation for why language has derivative intentionality. And it was really interesting as it came together because, I had to kind of pool resources between philosophy of language and philosophy of mind, so theories of consciousness. But overall, I think it was really interesting seeing it all come together, seeing this, I think, comprehensive but really original piece of work come out. That was my IS, and I'd love to answer any questions you have. Thank you very much.